piece of English welcomes you.
Chapter 2. At first, Oliver was careful to hide when he saw people in the street, thinking they would want to take him back to Mr. Sowerberry, but he relaxed after a few hours. Surely no one was following him now. He saw a sign which said London 70 miles. He did not know how long this would take to walk, but he decided that London would be a good place for him to go. Even Mr. Bumble would not be able to find him in that great city he had heard of, where there would be so many opportunities for him. He followed the signs to London for 7 days, sleeping in fields and eating very little. Although a few kind people gave him food, he felt hungry and weak. Finally, he sat down to rest in the street of a small village. Another poor boy of about his age, who was wearing a man's coat and a tall hat, came and sat next to him. "You look hungry. Where are you going?" said the boy. "I'm going to London," Oliver replied. "Have you got a room there, or any money?" Oliver said that he had almost nothing. "Well, I know a man who will give you work and a room for nothing," he said cheerfully. "My name's Jack Dawkins," he continued, "although my friends call me the Artful Dodger." Jack seemed to be kind. He bought Oliver a meal and then said he could show him the way to London, but only when it was dark. It was not too far to London, but it was not what Oliver had expected. Jack took Oliver through streets that were poorer and dirtier than he had ever seen, and he thought perhaps he should run away again. Then they arrived in front of an old house, and when Jack called out, a door opened and they went inside. Jack led him to a large and dark back room with a fire in one corner. Next to the fire, an ugly old man with red hair was cooking something in a big pan. 4 or 5 boys sat on old beds around the fire. "This is Oliver," said Jack. At once, the boys stood up and began to take Oliver's few things from him. The old man laughed. "I'm Fagin," he said. "Sit down and have some food." Oliver sat by the fire and ate. Then, before he knew it, he fell asleep. When he woke, the room was quiet. He saw Fagin sitting at a table taking some things out of a wooden box. He looked carefully at a gold watch and some expensive jewelry before putting them back in the box. He then looked at Oliver. When he saw that Oliver was awake, he jumped up and quickly closed the wooden box. "What did you see?" he shouted, taking a knife in one hand. "Nothing, sir," said Oliver nervously. "Can I get up now?" "Yes, of course," said Fagin, putting the knife down again. Oliver relaxed and looked around the room. He thought the old gentleman must be a miser to live in such an old place, with so much jewelry and so many watches. He thought that perhaps Fagin used all his money to look after the boys. At that moment, Jack Dawkins arrived with a boy called Charlie Bates. "I hope you've been at work this morning, boys," Fagin said when he saw them. "We've been working hard." "Good. What have you got?" Fagin asked Jack. Jack showed him some notebooks, and Fagin looked at them carefully. "They're well made, aren't they?" Fagin said to Oliver. "Yes, very well made," answered Oliver. Fagin and the boys found this very funny, although Oliver did not know why. Then Charlie showed Fagin some silk handkerchiefs. "They're good ones," said Fagin, "but they have marks on them. We can show Oliver how to take off the marks." "Thank you, sir," said Oliver. Charlie laughed again and said, "The boy is so very young." "Let's have breakfast. Then we'll show Oliver our little game," said Fagin. When they had eaten, Fagin put a watch in one of his pockets, a notebook in another pocket, and a wallet in another. Then he walked around the room, pretending to be looking in shop windows. Oliver thought that this game was very funny. Jack and Charlie then walked very close to Fagin, and without Oliver realizing it, they suddenly had the watch, the notebook, and the wallet in their hands. "Very good," said Fagin. "Now you try, Oliver." Oliver walked behind Fagin and took a handkerchief from his pocket. "Has it gone?" asked Fagin. "Well done. I felt nothing," he cried. "You're a clever boy. You'll be as successful as the Artful Dodger." Oliver did not understand how taking handkerchiefs could make you successful,
But because the old man was kind and gave him food, he did not question his advice.
After a few days of practicing the game, Fagin told Oliver that he was ready to go out into the streets of London with Charlie and the Artful Dodger. A few hours later, Oliver found himself in a strange London street with his two new friends. The Artful Dodger pointed to a gentleman who was reading a book outside a bookshop. "Look, he'll do," he said to Charlie. Oliver watched as the two boys walked quietly behind the gentleman and carefully took a handkerchief from his pocket. Oliver suddenly understood why Fagin had so many watches and silk handkerchiefs and such a lot of jewelry. The boys were thieves. Before he knew what was happening, the gentleman turned round and called out, "Stop! Thief!" Oliver started to run away, but now everyone in the street was pointing at him and calling, "Stop him! He's a thief!" Suddenly, Oliver fell over, and a crowd of people stood all around him. "Is this the boy?" someone called. "Yes, that's him." Oliver saw the gentleman looking down at him. "The poor boy is hurt," the man said. At that moment, a policeman arrived and told Oliver to stand up. "It wasn't me," cried Oliver. "Oh, yes, it was," called the policeman, who led Oliver roughly down the street. The crowd of people and the gentleman followed the police station down to the police station.
"I don't think he did it," said the gentleman, as Oliver was locked in a room. "Don't worry, sir," said a police officer. "A magistrate will see him soon. He'll decide." The gentleman, who was called Mr. Brownlow, was puzzled. Where had he seen the boy before? A little while later, Oliver was called to see the magistrate. When the magistrate heard what had happened, it was quickly decided that Oliver should go to prison. On hearing the news, Oliver felt ill and fainted. He was carried out of the room. The magistrate was going to send everyone home when the owner of the bookshop suddenly appeared. "It wasn't that boy," he said to the magistrate. "It was two other boys. He was with them, but he didn't take anything," he explained. "I saw the other boys running away." "Why didn't you tell me this before?" called the magistrate. "Let the boy go free and stop wasting my time." As he left the building, Mr. Brownlow saw Oliver lying down on the street outside. "Poor boy," he said. "Somebody call a coach. He must come home with me." Oliver was carefully put inside a coach and taken to Mr. Brownlow's house, but he did not remember the journey. Oliver was very ill. He slept for many days in a warm, comfortable bed in Mr. Brownlow's large house in a good part of London. When he at last woke up, he said, "What room is this?" An old lady quickly appeared and smiled at him. "You must be quiet, or you'll be ill again."
"Lie down, there's a dear," said the woman, Mrs. Bedwin, who looked after the house. So Oliver stayed in bed, and it was several days before he was well enough to go downstairs. He walked slowly into a beautiful room and saw Mr. Brownlow smiling at him. "You look a little better," said Mr. Brownlow. Then he looked puzzled again. "But what is this? Look there." He pointed to a painting of a pretty woman on the wall above Oliver's head. Oliver was amazed. He could see that the eyes, the head, and the mouth were almost the same as his own. And after Oliver was taken by the policeman, Charlie and the Artful Dodger ran quickly back to the old house. Fagin was so angry to hear what had happened to Oliver that he threw a cup of coffee at Charlie. "Stop wasting good coffee," said a deep voice. Fagin looked round and saw an angry-looking man with big, strong shoulders. "What are you doing, Fagin?" he shouted. "Sorry, Bill," said Fagin, "but we have a problem." He explained to Mr. Sykes, or Bill, as Fagin called him, what had happened to Oliver.
Oliver will probably tell the police where we are and what we do, explained Fagin. We need to speak to him quickly, said Mr. Sykes. The police don't know Nancy, so she can go and find out what's happened, he suggested. Nancy was a young woman who worked for Mr. Sykes. She put on her best clothes and set off for the police station. But when she got there, she was told that Oliver had gone. A police officer told me that he went somewhere in a coach with a gentleman called Mr. Brownlow, Nancy told Fagin when she got back. When Fagin heard the news, he cried out, "We must find out where he is before he tells anyone about us." He then gave Nancy and the Artful Dodger some money. "Go and find Oliver. Don't stop until you find him, not even for a minute.